Big Vinny. Love him or hate him, you can't ignore him. His name alone sends shivers down spines. His presence? Enough to make grown men break a sweat, or worse. But Big Vinny isn't just a name whispered in fear. He's a puzzle wrapped in mystery, tangled in half-truths and outright confusion. Until now. Because we got in touch with someone who knows him better than anyone, his own brother. And let's just say, he's more than ready to spill the truth once and for all. You all had questions. My last video on Big Vinny, it blew up. Thousands of comments, theories, and demands for answers. Some of them, I just couldn't ignore it. So buckle up, because today, we're setting the record straight, with Big Vinny's own bloodline as our witness. And the best part? He saw this script before it went live, so sit tight. The truth starts now. Who was Big Vinny? What made him such a legendary figure in the Hells Angels? His name wasn't always Big Vinny. He was born Vincent Girolamo. He had an Italian father and Jewish mother. Vinny grew into a towering force of nature, a man who didn't just take up space, he dominated it. It wasn't long before he caught the right eyes, the kind that could either make or break you, and in his case, they made him. By the time he carved out his place in the Hells Angels, the streets already had a name for him, the Beast from the East. And if you ever saw him, you'd know why. Standing at a colossal 6 feet 8 inches, weighing in at 320 pounds, Vinny wasn't just big, he was unforgettable. His presence alone carried a weight that could silence a room. Fear wasn't something he had to enforce. It followed him. From the Bronx to Brooklyn, from shadowy back rooms to the clubhouses in Manhattan, nobody wanted to cross the Beast. Vinny's life? It was a whirlwind of thrills, danger, and pure, unfiltered adrenaline. He had a philosophy, a simple, brutal mantra. When in doubt, knock 'em out. And rest assured, he meant every word. The enforcer and the gentle giant. For those who knew him, his formidable presence was his most defining trait. An acquaintance from the Lower East Side, who prefers to remain anonymous, put it bluntly. Every time I saw him in the Bronx, I couldn't help but be intimidated by his size. But for all the brutality, the showdowns, and the fearsome reputation, there was another side to the Beast from the East, one that not many expected. A building inspector from the early 1980s painted a very different picture. According to him, Big Vinny wasn't always loud or menacing. In fact, he was surprisingly silent, almost reserved, quieter than you'd imagine, and, at times, even tender. This side of him surfaced in the rough streets of 3rd Street, Manhattan. One day, the inspector witnessed something that stuck with him forever. A biker had just been hit by a car. Before anyone could react, Vinny was already moving. Without hesitation, the towering enforcer rushed in, scooping the injured man off the asphalt and getting him to a hospital. No second thoughts, no questions asked. And then, in true Big Vinny fashion, he turned to the bystanders, gave a casual wave, and did something that left an impression. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card, and handed it over to the inspector. "If you're ever down here and need help with your inspections," he said, "just knock on our clubhouse door." It wasn't a threat, it was an offer of protection, because if there was one thing Big Vinny was known for, besides his towering frame and brutal strength, it was his unwavering loyalty. His reputation wasn't just built on fear, it was built on a code of honor, and for those under his protection, that meant everything. The legend, born in the heat of the night. Big Vinny's legend didn't just stay in one place, it traveled, weaving itself into the very fabric of biker folklore. The story of Big Vinny and his fists? Pure legend. One night in the thick of it all, a familiar voice, an old acquaintance known only as Uncle RG, sent a shockwave through the crowd with a single call, "Prospect." Silence fell. The air crackled with anticipation. And then, Vinny moved. In one swift motion, he reached out, grabbed a fellow brother, and hoisted him clean off the ground. The man hung there, weightless in Vinny's grasp, when the enforcer's voice boomed over the stunned crowd. "If you're gonna hit like 240, you might as well be 240. The place erupted. Cheers, laughter, adrenaline-fueled roars. The energy was electric. The crowd was on its feet, hungry for the action they knew was coming. The moment was captured, etched into the history of the Hells Angels. And just like that, Big Vinny's philosophy, knock 'em out, was sealed into the collective memory of every rider who stood there that night. The story lived on, retold and reimagined, growing wilder with each passing year. But here's what most people missed. Behind the towering force of nature, beneath the iron grip and the thundering presence, Big Vinny was a man who craved respect, and he gave it back tenfold. One of his close friends put it best: "I knew and liked Big Vinny. He had a formidable figure, yet his smile and contagious laugh could brighten the darkest of nights." Yes, Vinny was fierce, but he was also funny, mischievous, even childlike at times. He had a habit of throwing out playful nicknames. One biker in particular he fondly called Little Dago. It was a nod to their wild days in the club, a reminder that for all the danger and chaos, there was brotherhood too. A web of myths, discrepancies, and personal recollections. Like most legends, Big Vinny's story is tangled in mystery, myth, and outright contradiction. What really happened to him? Some say it was a fistfight gone too far, a brawl that left him battered beyond repair. Others insist it was something far worse, a brutal knife fight with Irish O'Farrell that delivered the fatal blow. Then there are whispers that a drunken Bronx brawl ruptured his spleen, a wound that over time turned lethal. And finally, those closest to him claim the truth was far more tragic, unattended internal bleeding that crept up, slow and merciless, taking him in the end. But the rumors didn't stop there. One voice in the crowd demanded, "Tell the truth." Another shot back, "Just because you didn't get charged doesn't mean it didn't happen." The circumstances surrounding Big Vinny's final days? Chaotic, conflicting, heartbreaking. One version insists he fell into a belly fight with a chapter member named Matt in New York. Another claims his downfall was the violin brawl with the Irish, a battle that escalated into something deadly. Then there's Vinny's own blood. His nephew had only one thing to say: "If you want the real story, talk to someone who knows him." But with every retelling, the discrepancies only deepened the legend. And then there was the Ziegfeld Theater. That night would go down in infamy. What started as a moment of aggression took an unexpected turn when Vinny knocked over a hot dog wagon. A small act, but one that sent a chain of uncontrollable events spiraling out of control. Because with them, violence didn't need a reason. It could ignite over something as trivial as a glance at the wrong woman, a misplaced word, an insult that never should have been spoken, and once the fire was lit, it was impossible to put out. These clashes, fueled by adrenaline, pride, and rage, left a trail of destruction in their wake. Broken property, broken people, irreparable damage. And standing at the center of it all, more often than not, Big Vinny. Some say these endless battles chipped away at him, piece by piece, until they led to his slow, inevitable downfall. But to the Hells Angels, it wasn't a tragedy. It was a badge of honor. To them, violence wasn't a downfall. It was a way of life. And when the dust settled, when bodies lay crumpled on the pavement, the Angels never stuck around. By the time the cops arrived, they were long gone. For both insiders and outsiders, fights involving Big Vinny were more than just brawls. They were a spectacle. The way he fought, the way he threw a man like he weighed nothing, the way his fists seemed to hold the power of a wrecking ball. These were the things legends were made of. The impact beyond the fights. Big Vinny was more than just a fist that could break bones. His wit, sharp as a blade. His humor, unapologetic. His one-liners, the stuff of legend. Maybe that's why, even now, his name refuses to fade. You'll find his influence in club patches worn by bikers in Montana, in stories passed around during drive-in movie nights, where riders line up, engines rumbling in tribute to a man they never met, but all seem to know. But for all the chaos and violence, there was another side to the beast from the East. A young bystander from the East Coast once watched in awe as Big Vinny and his crew thundered down the highway, a blur of speed, dust, and raw rebellion. Yet on the other hand, some club owners knew a different Big Vinny. They'd quietly slip $200 into his hands every week, not for protection, but for permission. Permission to simply exist. That was the power he wielded. From the very start, his reputation was built on stark contrasts. To some, he was a guardian, a man of loyalty and fierce protection. To others, he was a dealer of destruction. Drugs, weapons, violence, all rolled into one. A skeptic once scoffed, so much for his charitable actions, because how do you reconcile a man feared and loved in equal measure? Maybe you don't. Maybe that's what makes a legend. A legacy etched in contradiction. The story of the beast from the east is one of contradictions. One moment, he was a marauding Viking, a force of destruction. The next, a guardian, a protector. But no matter which version of Vinny you believe, one image remains unchanged. Pure grit, pure bravado, pure legend. His death remains a mystery, but his legacy, loud, unshaken, undeniable. A life built on loyalty, love, bravado, and brotherhood. Big Vinny didn't just live, he left a mark. Some questions that we have: was he 31 years old? How did he die? Was he a Vietnam vet? Was he in the military, or was he a Marine? Do you know any stories? What led Vinny to join the Hells Angels? You can share anything else you wish, and we will try out best to include everything.